Hi, welcome to this fourth look at the Christmas 2024 weather prospects. At the time of recording, there are still 13 sleeps to go until the big day itself. In some people's minds, a very short time, in others, an inordinately long one. In terms of the weather, it's definitely a case of the latter, because there is plenty of time for things to change. Okay, just a quick reminder about the definition of a white Christmas. It is that a flake of snow has to be recorded as falling within the 24 hours of December the 25th somewhere in the UK. Hence, this may be no good because there's lots of snow on the ground, but the skies are blue, so the snow fell in the days leading up to Christmas. Conversely, this may be just the ticket. It's a wet and miserable picture in my books, but if you look closely, there are one or two flakes of snow mixed into the rain. It's a white Christmas. Before jumping into the analogues and computer model data, I just wanted to bring up this table because it's not specifically Christmas related, but it lists the coldest 10 Decembers in the Central England temperature series. And how many of these can you remember? I can recall two of them. 2010, very, very cold. With that said, there wasn't a great deal of snow in my part of England, the Chilterns. We had about 10 or 15 centimetres, I think, on the 18th or 20th of December. That stayed on the ground until just after Christmas Day. Bitterly cold, though, the entire month, really. The other one, 1981, not quite as cold, but there was a lot more snow through the, I think, about 3 or 4 week period. And many places saw snow on the ground on the big day itself. All the others on this list are from times long gone by. The coldest one there, 1890, just a tad colder than 2010. No other entries here in the 20th or 21st century. Anyway, that's all history now. What about the future? So I'm going to start with the analogues. This is where the weather patterns in the Northern Hemisphere during the last 30 days are compared with the same period in previous years to find the best matches. So I'm going to present the top 5, see whether there have been many changes since last week. In position 5, it's 2015. 10% of weather stations recorded snow falling, but none reported snow on the ground. In fact, I suspect they must have really all been in the north there because it was very mild air pushing up into southern and central regions. And this was a notoriously mild winter. I think it was the mildest on record when measured by the Central England temperature series, 6.8 degrees there. Each of the 3 winter months, very mild, but particularly December. Now, number 4 is 1988, another very, very mild winter indeed. And Christmas Day itself didn't buck the trend there with that southwesterly flow. Number 3, 1971, I think this is a new entry into the top 5. Doesn't really help a great deal because it's a west or southwesterly flow. It's a mild picture. Number 2 is 2004. This is the standout of the 5, I think, if it's a white Christmas, which you're hoping for. A northwesterly flow moving down across the UK, cold upper level air, snow even in some low-lying parts of Devon, according to a BBC report. I don't really recall there being snow on the ground here in Berkhamsted, but I suspect it was pretty chilly nonetheless. Okay, so what takes top spot this week? It is 2003, a mild setup. The Atlantic flow pushing right across the UK into Scandinavia. Very mild air just to the south, and I suspect it would have only been the highest parts of the Scottish Highlands which may have seen a few flakes of snow. So the analogues, it has to be said, with the exception of 2004, are not at all favourable. Well, enough of those. What about the computer model data? Now, I can't promise you a blizzard for Christmas Day. What I can say, though, is there is now a blizzard of computer model data beginning to appear which covers the Christmas period. So let's have a look at the GEFS 16-day plot first for London, upper air temperatures are across the top. The Christmas period varies on the right of the graph. Precipitation is along the bottom. The number of runs forecasting snow below it, the snow row. Not much to say about it. Temperatures fluctuating around average, at least aloft. A fair number of precipitation spikes showing up there through the Christmas period, but very few forecasts of snow. As I said, there is time for change, but only 1 or 2 runs really going for even snow to fall, let alone accumulate in this part of the UK. The 2-metre temperatures, though, I suppose they show quite a big spread through Christmas. You can see the runs diverging there. A number of them are still dipping down below freezing point, but all in all, that doesn't really look very hopeful to me. Well, not up to Glasgow yet. I also wanted to show the London ECM ensemble plot just to add a little bit of confidence level to the GEFS, because this shows a very, very similar picture to the GEFS ensemble. Up to Glasgow now, a similar story really, but the point here is that the further north you go, the lower the averages are. So even if you're close to or just a little bit below the average in this part of the UK, there is a greater chance, of course, of snow falling than there is if you're in southern England. But with that said, the number of runs going for snow falling is about 5 or 8, just varying around the Christmas period. So I'd describe it as a low to moderate chance, but certainly a better outlook than in southern counties. The 2-metre temperatures, based on the GEFS data, also showing a big spread there from about the 21st of December. It's shaded out, but you can see the runs are starting to diverge increasingly, and by the time you reach the 25th, some are going pretty cold and some are going distinctly mild, but certainly the chance of snow here is higher than it is in the south. And the ECM chart for Glasgow really just backs that up. It's a similar story. I think, if anything, what these are suggesting is that cold conditions, or relatively cold conditions, are more likely between the 20th and the 25th rather than the 25th and the 30th, but I wouldn't place a lot of stock in that. It's a general idea which is important at this range. Now, this is actually another way of looking at the GEFS data for Christmas Day. The animation is showing all the individual runs in the model. They were all represented on those line graphs. These are the synoptics which they are going for. Midday, Christmas Day. And you can maybe step through these in your own time. You'll see there is a mix of scenarios, as would be expected. Still, there are a few cold ones in there, some distinctly cold and wintry looking ones. But the majority of them are supporting the idea of an Atlantic flow. So high pressure to the south, the southwest, maybe pushing into continental Europe. Low pressure to the north, maybe edging northeastwards towards Scandinavia. That would in turn allow colder air to start sinking southwards, especially across the northern half UK. But the key thing here is most runs are going for an Atlantic flow, only really supporting the idea of snow over high ground in the northern half of the UK. Here's the snow depth animation sequence from the GEFS, which reinforces that idea. The stamps here show the different forecasts from all of the runs in the GEFS, and the animation is just running through Christmas Day. If you freeze this or zoom in and look closely, you'll see there are a couple of runs which are showing accumulations of snow in southern Britain, but the vast majority are not. The chance is a lot higher over the Pennines and the Scottish mountains. A very, very familiar picture is being painted here. But I don't want to be the Christmas Grinch this week, so I'm going to throw in a wild card, which is the deterministic models, because these provide a snapshot rather than probability data, and at this range they shouldn't be relied upon at all. Nonetheless, they are quite fun to see. And in the last couple of days, a number of them have gone for a more wintry Christmas Day scenario. And the most recent at the time of filming is the GFS 06 setup date. This is showing the picture at midday, December 25th. Very cold air is sweeping down from the north across the UK. There's a disturbance to the southwest and one running down from the north, and what that means is a risk of rain, sleet and snow in parts of the UK on Christmas Day. There's that second disturbance moving down from the north. Don't place any stock in this. I've just thrown it in, as I said, as a wild card. Most of the model runs are not going for this type of scenario. So, to summarise, it remains too early to make a confident forecast, but the analogues are not favourable. The ensemble data suggests that widespread snow isn't likely, with the risk mostly over high ground in the north, as I mentioned there, especially the Pennines and the Scottish mountains. But there is that wild card, which is that some of the deterministic model runs, and for that matter some of the ensemble ones, are still showing cold scenarios. It means it's possible that we could have a cold Christmas, but at the moment it is not the most likely outcome. Okay, I have to give a White Christmas score, as I've been doing on all these updates. Last week I gave it 3 out of 5. What am I going for this time? Here we are, 2.5 out of 5. 5, of course, being the highest score it's possible to award. So I've dropped down the chance a little bit from 3 to 2.5. Not a huge change. On balance, a widespread White Christmas looks unlikely. No real surprise, but there is a good degree of uncertainty still at this stage. And if you're living in the northern half of the UK, I think there is quite a lot of interest, particularly, as I've mentioned, over high ground, and also, of course, if it's a technical White Christmas that you're hoping to record rather than snow being deep, crisp and even. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this update. I will be producing at least one more on the Christmas weather prospects, possibly 2. It will just depend how things develop in the coming days. Don't forget that if you found it useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thanks now. Bye.